Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us, and welcome to our very first webinar. We have a couple of firsts we'd like to share with you today that we believe will amaze you and will definitely change the way you trade. My name is Zachary White, and today for you we have three objectives. The first being how BloodHound can help you. The second being some basic terms and concepts to help you understand BloodHound. And thirdly, we have several demonstrations to kind of show you the basics. And for now, I'd like to introduce the author and creator of BloodHound and my friend Jeremy Tang. Take it away, Jeremy.
Thanks, Zach, for this kind of introduction, and thank you all for coming today. And we're excited. The response has been absolutely amazing. And as Zach said, this is a sort of a day for many firsts. Not the least of which, this is the first webinar, but also the first product that we've just released. But most importantly, BloodHound is the first software of its kind for the retail trader. And it's going to change the way trading systems are created. So speaking of trading systems, I'm just going to run a little bit of a poll here to get an idea of what your relationship with trading systems are. And basically, I just want to know, like how far along the curve are you in terms of either creating trading systems or actually implementing them in NinjaTrader, or just maybe just wanting to implement them in NinjaTrader. Because we're all here because we know the importance of a trading system. There's basically one way to go ahead and trade, and that's to do the ad hoc method, and that's sort of just fire from the hip. But of course, there's the more structured and critical method, which is having a set of rules and trading methodology defined that you actually trade with. So many of you actually are fairly aware of what the importance of implementing a trading system is, and actually by the looks of it, by the poll, it looks like most of you actually want to somehow implement your trading system in NinjaTrader. Of course, this has many advantages to it. Being able to implement your trading system in NinjaTrader, as opposed to, say, just looking at a bunch of different indicators and training your eye to see what these indicators are doing, has many advantages to it, not the least of which is the ability to distinctly identify your buy and sell signals, and also to take essentially the emotion equation out of your trades. Because when you have clearly marked entry signals on your chart, there really is no question. So what BloodHound is basically designed to do is allow you to implement your trading system and clearly mark up your chart with your signals. So let's go ahead and presume for a minute that you actually wanted to develop a trading system for BloodHound, or if you simply didn't have the capability or knowledge to code one up, that you want to hire someone to do it for you. What exactly would be involved if you had to do this? Well, first you would have to come up with a trading idea. That's basically your part there. Then you would either have to hire a coder or learn how to code it and do that yourself. Then you'd be testing it, debugging it, and that's sort of a stage that you'd have to undergo, as all developers know. That's just part of the game. And finally, once you've got your system and you've tested it enough to make sure it actually does what you intended to do, you can now analyze it to see if it makes money. And most likely, you're not going to hit it on the first try. You're probably going to have a system that you're probably going to have to iterate many times over before you find something that you're happy with. And those of you that have been system trading for some time know that again, you're not going to hit it on the first time. It's going to take many tries, at many kicks of the can before you arrive at something you're happy with. So in review, basically, the obstacles that you would face, that most traders actually, we found that are faced with when they want to implement a trading system in NinjaTrader, is the time involved in doing so. The coding knowledge and expertise required to actually pull it off, which can translate to actually dollars, hard dollars if you're hiring someone. And lastly, but this is sort of the hidden part of it, is the inflexibility involved with it, because if you have to make a change, you have to tweak it, or if you have to iterate through that cycle one more time, you got to go around the gambit. So it's that cycle could be a couple days, could be 5 days, who knows? It depends on your speed and your ability. So the way BloodHound changes all this is it's a fast, easy, and effective way to implement your trading system in NinjaTrader so that you have it clearly marked on your chart, you have buy and sell signals, and you can actually go through this development cycle that we had earlier and eliminate 2 steps from it. And in fact, if you were to just suppose that you were to save, say, 3 days worth of development time in creating your system, each time you went around that circle, and Zach and I have sort of come up with this figure here, and we arrived at this number of hours by estimating, say, let's just say you had to do this, you had to iterate about 50 times before you went from point A, which is having no system, to point B, which is having something you're happy with and you're ready to trade and you're ready to go live with to make money with in NinjaTrader. We figured that's, it could take you about 50 iterations before you get to there. And that may sound like a fairly high number, but honestly, we've been talking to traders that have done several hundred. Now that may be a bit on the extreme side, but certainly there's some work ahead of you if you want to get to this point. And so 50 trading systems, we figure, or 50 iterations, if you were to save 3 days each at 8 hours a day, equates to about 1,200 hours. Now, to put that in dollars, because as traders, I'm sure you're very familiar with the whole time is money aspect of it. Say you were to pay a coder to do this for you, or if you were to peg a value to yourself, you'd be looking at $24,000 worth of value that essentially you could potentially save by using a tool like BloodHound. So we try to provide a lot of value, and certainly we don't sell our system our software for $24,000. We provide a lot of value for a lot less. So let's go ahead and change gears here a bit, and I'm going to pass the torch back to Zach, who's going to go ahead and show you some basically BloodHound in action.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. So I'm going to give you guys a demonstration here of essentially BloodHound speed. So the case I'd like to make is I have an indicator that you'll see in just a moment that took me a good solid week to code up and debug and test, and it is a point-based system that a friend of ours, Noel, who's in Roger's trading room with us, he had using the system that Roger had taught him, he created his own point-based system. And he was finding that manually adding up all these points and looking at all these indicators taking too long. So he asked us to, if we could help him out and create something for him. And so I wrote this indicator here that I will start projecting my monitor for you to take a look at. It's very colorful. Okay, so I hope you can all see my screen now. I believe you can. So down here is Noel's point system that once again took me about a week, and I'm going to demonstrate for you, how quickly this system can be built in BloodHound, and while you watch in real time in just a matter of minutes. And to help me out, Jeremy is going to narrate for me and explain what's going on while so I can concentrate on putting the system together. All right, so I'm going to hand it back over to Jeremy. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Zach. So as you can see on the chart there, he's got basically on the very bottom the so-called Christmas tree, as Noel used to call it. It's the original indicator that Zach built for him. And you see these set of numbers, and basically the idea is if you see a number that's 7 or above, that's a permission to go to enter in that side. So there's 2 sets of numbers, one's on the top, one's on the bottom. The top ones are the long ones, the bottom ones are the short ones. And as you can see, Zach is right now adding the 1-minute chart to the BloodHound template. That corresponds, it's a little difficult to see on Noel's indicator, but there's basically a set of blue and red dots just below the last set of numbers, and that's basically the EMA 55 being a trade permissive. I'll get into that basically when he gets to that point, but just for now, just think about that as basically a overall filter, is filtering the trend. So the first step in any any sort of system building activity is to basically just write down your criteria. You can't really get started unless you have you've got your criteria articulated, and that's exactly what Zach has done here. Is on the left hand side you see the notepad. He's got the stochastics, the HMA, the HMA20, the MACD, which Noel used to like to call the momentum. So if we use those interchangeably, apologize for the confusion, but momentum or MACD, that's kind of Noel used to like to interchangeably use those two names together. But basically we're looking at all these different aspects of the chart, and what Zach is doing right now is he's adding what we're calling solvers to the BloodHound template. These solvers are things that look at different aspects of your chart, things like the slope of an indicator, the change in slope of an indicator, the bar direction, it could be the bar length, it could be maybe the position of the price in a particular in your price channel. So there's a variety of them that are actually included with BloodHound. And the ones that we're interested in right now are the slope solvers, because that's what the criteria is dictating. So right now he's adding the HMA9, and according to the system we want to look at the slope of the HMA9, and he just, prior to that, he was looking at the change in slope of the stochastics indicator. So I'm going to draw your eyes actually just down a little bit. You see the chart is now lit up with green and red stripes. Noel actually used to call these the racing stripes when we showed him BloodHound for the first time. That is the BloodHound output. And basically, just for now, I want you to just note that these green bars and red bars, they go from 0 to 1, as you can see. And the taller the green bars are, the more basically what BloodHound is telling you that your system is now favoring the long side, and as the red bars are growing, your system is favoring the short side. So here is adding the MACD momentum indicator. Noel used to like to call this one the Momo. Again, he had these funky names for each of these criteria, and what this indicator, or sorry, what this solver does is you can actually associate an indicator with it. So right now Zach is just naming these solvers so that they're easily identifiable in the second stage, but you can name them pretty much anything you want. And as he clicks this little ellipsis button, this dialog pops up, and pretty much all the indicators that are on your system will appear in this dialog box. So this can include things like your third-party indicators, perhaps even indicators that you've written yourself, just about anything actually. And right now he's basically setting the output parameters of the solver to give him specifically what he's looking for, which is to see if this momentum is sort of a derivative. Actually, I should clarify, it's a derivative of the MACD, just to test if it's above or below 2 of -2. So for those of you that are actually familiar with the MACD, it's actually slightly different. Notice as well, if you sort of keep your eye on the bottom right of the screen and you're looking at the chart and the BloodHound output, you can see that the BloodHound is actually updating in real time as he's adding these solvers to the system. So it's basically, you can interact and work with it. This is sort of a step more advanced than say if you're used to NinjaTrader and you had if you had an indicator in the past, maybe developed by some third party, and you were able to play with the settings and whatnot, there was still a bit of a hiccup. You'd have to instantiate in the chart, let the chart refresh, and then you would see the results in the chart. But here you can see that literally as he's clicking the buttons, as he's manipulating the values, BloodHound is instantaneously updating the chart. And this actually happens in real time also when the market data is coming in. So not that we'd recommend it, but you could literally be making adjustments to your system in the live trading market. It's very possible to do that. Now, if you look on that BloodHound template screen, you'll notice that there's a section there called 1 minute. I just want to briefly explain that. That's actually what he's pulled in there is a separate time frame. So BloodHound is fully capable of looking at chart data on multiple time frames. So if you're those type of traders that like to trade with larger time frames and smaller time frames open simultaneously, naturally there's going to be a lot of clutter on your screen, especially if you're just looking at maybe 1 or 2 indicators on those time frames. BloodHound actually will let you just amalgamate all that data, pull it right into your main chart, and potentially just eliminate the need entirely of having those other charts up. So it's also not just a trade system indicator, but it's also a great way to amalgamate and clean up your desktop space and really provide clarity to your trading system and provide clarity to your desktop. So here he's actually adding the trade permissive. In Noel's system, basically it's a 55 EMA, and he's comparing against the closing price, which is the current price, and basically ensuring that on the 1 minute chart, so this is not the current chart you're looking at, but the 1 minute chart, that the price is above or below the 1 minute EMA 55. So Zach is now on to the second stage of defining the BloodHound template, and this is the logic stage. The logic stage is where you can get really creative. So this is where you take your inputs that you've defined earlier, and now you craft some custom logic to arrive and massage the output the way you like to see fit. So in this case with the Noel system, he's actually got a point-based system. Now this is the idea is you have, I think he's got 6 criteria, and of those 6 criteria, some of them can contribute multiple points to the final tally. But if you sort of imagine you have this sort of checklist, and he's got basically criteria 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Criteria 1 is capable of contributing 3 points. Criteria 2 is capable of contributing 1 point, and the other ones there's one more that can contribute 2 points. But basically what he would do traditionally is he would go in, look at the indicators, see if it's behaving the way he likes it to see, and then add a point for it if he saw what he liked to see. And then the idea is at the end of the day, if you had enough points tallied, and in Noel's situation, he was looking for I think a total of 7 points before being able to take a trade. And this was also something I guess he was working on. He sort of change that up if he felt like it. Then that would mean you could take a trade in that direction, but only if the EMA on the 1 minute time frame agreed with it. So as you can sort of tell, I mean that's quite a lot of stuff to keep track of in the real-time market in the heat of battle. And BloodHound enables you to basically put all that together and succinctly give you these buy and sell signals that correspond exactly to those rules. So he's actually added an additive node, and it might be a little bit small on your screen there, but what he's doing is he's plugging in all the criteria and the solvers to this additive node, which will allow him to essentially add these points up. So in BloodHound, and I'll explain in further detail, everything is evaluated from a 0 to 1. So we have to make a little bit of adjustments to the points. We can't just add 3 points or 2 points or 1 point. So we have to sort of normalize those points so that they have the equivalent value, if you will, from 0 to 1, so that we get a nice output that is in the proper range. So as you can see, he's also got an AND node in there. There's one of the criteria is actually generates 2 different points, but only if both conditions are met. So that's why he's actually got it plugged into the AND node. So don't worry too much if this looks a little bit overwhelming, a little bit confusing. Again, BloodHound is designed for you to toy with it. It's designed for you to, we're just as well demonstrating that you can essentially construct anything of any kind of complexity that you desire, and relatively quickly. Now, to be able to code this kind of logic, even for fairly experienced coders, is actually quite difficult. And it's kind of a funny story. As we were testing this out and whatnot, we actually, when comparing it to the BloodHound output, we found that actually there was discrepancies. We're like, oh, geez, that's, why is there a discrepancy here? This is not good. And upon closer inspection, we found there's actually a bug in Zach's code there, and so BloodHound was actually given the correct output, whereas his original indicator wasn't. And that's sort of a bit of a lesson, a little bit of a scary story when you think about it, because if you attempt to do this, even experienced coders like Zach are prone to make mistakes like this. And so coding can have its own risks involved. Just implementing a system in code, and having a tool like BloodHound and being able to sort of surpass that is a great way to not have to worry about those things. So what Zach is doing, as I was talking about earlier, is he's able to manipulate essentially the inputs of, or the influence that the individual criteria has inside that additive node. So again, don't worry too much if you don't fully understand this. We're going to go into some further depth and explain what may look like a bit of a I know we're kind of going over this quickly, but the whole point is, again, to show you that it's very possible to build these systems quickly. And Zach, actually he's had some proficiencies with this, and what I want to sort of illustrate is that if when you get to the level that Zach is at, you actually have you'll now have the ability to do a lot in very little time. So Zach, how long have you actually been learning BloodHound?
Well, I think let's see. I think Jeremy showed me BloodHound about the end of February, and I probably didn't really get to start playing around with it until like the 1st of March. So so it's been about three to 4 weeks, and maybe at best a couple hours a day. And it definitely wasn't every day that I got to play with it. At first, I just kind of started playing around with each solver individually. I'm very much a visual learner, so I'd take each solver and just analyze each one at a time and just kind of see how the output would update on the chart. That for me, it got me up to speed pretty quick in figuring out how all the solvers worked out. And then the fun part came when I got to play around with the logic node and started connecting stuff. So yeah, so it was about 3 or 4 weeks.
Right, thanks, Zach. So basically, he's successfully implemented the system on the chart there, and I want to move on to the next portion of the demonstration and talk a little bit about the inner workings of BloodHound. So those of you that actually have viewed the quick start guide may have seen some of this. So this might be a bit of a review for you. So just bear with me for a second while I switch my my monitor on here. So can everybody see kind of a gray background there? Okay, well, let's see. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about how BloodHound works. Thanks, guys. So if you recalled on that screen, if you remember seeing those green bars that indicated long positions or indicated strength in the long direction, and those red bars that indicated short, like basically strength in the short position or the bearish side, you could think of BloodHound as like this really fancy, super duper configurable calculator. And what its end result is to do is to create these what we call confidence values that range from 0 to 1 on either the short or the long side. And so a nice tall green bar means that your system is telling you that you're favoring the long side, and a long I should say tall short bar is favoring the short side. So the closer it is to 1 on either side it means that's the way your system is favoring. And it's certainly possible to configure BloodHound kind of any way you like it. So I mean, some people can use it as a trade permissive to go in either direction. So basically that would mean you'd have actually long and short bars in both directions at the same time. So how are these values calculated? Now, you saw with Zach earlier, he was actually, he basically went through 2 stages. The first stage was he was adding these solvers or these criteria. And again, these solvers are kind of like the basic building blocks of the BloodHound system. You define each criteria individually, and then you pick the appropriate solver and the appropriate indicator, if applicable, for those solvers. So things like the indicator slopes, he was looking at the HMA slope there, he was looking at the stochastics change in slope. Those are all solvers, so those are raw inputs. And in the second stage, in the logic tab, he was basically constructing arbitrary logic with those inputs. And the nice thing about this is now that you've got your inputs defined, you can actually define your output any way you like. And BloodHound will actually allow you to define multiple types of different inputs. So multiple different templates, so that you can have different kind of outputs for different situations. So you only saw him create one logic template, but with BloodHound you can create as many as you'd like. So for example, you may have a set of logic instructions that create a system that's great for trending conditions only, and then perhaps you've pre-prepared another set of logic instructions that are great for sideways markets or cycling markets, so a totally different situation. And those of you that are fairly experienced with trading will know that what works in a trending market, so systems that work in a trending market don't tend to work too well in a non-trending market. So potentially you could actually have these different logic templates defined, and then in real time or on the fly while you're trading, switch between them, so your chart will update instantly and your trade signals will adjust accordingly. And those of you that are maybe a little unfamiliar with these logic nodes or these logic gates, they're actually quite simple, and they perform basically kind of what they sound like in the English language. So I mean, if you had a system where you had, say, 5 criteria, and you needed all those criteria to be satisfied before you take a position, then basically you're looking at using an AND node. You tie them together with an AND node, and that sort of makes sense because you want criteria 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, etc., to be true or to be satisfied before you take a position. Likewise, if you had, say, 3 criteria and you didn't care which one was satisfied, but you just wanted at least one of them to be satisfied, you would actually use an OR node and tie them together. So that's basically, if you were to say that in the English language, it sounds very natural. It's like, I want condition 1 or condition 2 or condition 3 to be true. So those are the basic nodes, and there's some advanced ones we'll get into actually in the next section here. So what we'd like to do here is actually, if Zach, you could share your screen, we're going to get into basically a little more in depth with the different solvers and show you kind of how the output is actually constructed, sort of piece by piece. So this is sort of the learning step, or the learning stage of the demonstration. Okay, so again, Zach has got our familiar chart up here, and on the chart you can see a white line. Basically that's the 100 EMA, and then 2 other lines, the kind of an orange and a blue line. Those are the SMA 10 and 30, respectively. And just below is the MACD. So most of these indicators you're probably familiar with as traders. But what we're going to do is show you how BloodHound analyzes these. So Zach, go ahead and let's open up the BloodHound template, and let's just take a look at what a slope analysis of the 100 EMA looks like. So typically, you know, you might have an indicator like this to see if you want to identify the overall trend in the market. So this could be maybe a trending indicator or something like that. But we're going to use this as an example here to show you what it looks like when BloodHound analyzes the slope. Oh, and Ken, just so you know, Audio Alerts is going to be in the next release. And David, this time custom solvers, it is possible in the future. We just
mouse
that's definitely on the table,
issues with my
and
mouse.
the software is definitely built to do that.
Isn't functioning
sort
correctly.
Of a matter of,
I'm trying to drag the
resources and whatnot on
real-time mode window over,
future,
but
yes.
all I'm getting is a double click out on my mouse. So I will.
So,
unfortunately, I don't.
Zach, why don't you
add the solvers like you did before?
hit F5 there and bring up the.
But I think I can still manage through this.
Bring up the BloodHound interface again.
Let's see. Yeah, that's working. That is just strange behavior from my mouse. Okay, good. We're back on track.
Uh-oh.
I have a very excellent.
Well, Zach, maybe try. Is there maybe you can right-click and move the window? Is that possible, or? There we go. Okay. Well, we obviously need to invest in some new equipment for Zach. He tells me he's got a super duper trading system, but yeah, well, you know, I don't know, Zach. I guess the lesson here learned is it pays to invest in your tools to get the best tools available. So okay, anyways, let's get on here. He's going to be adding a 100 EMA, and he added basically a slope analyzer. And immediately, if you just look on the chart here, I just want to draw your attention there. Just look at the red zones and the green zones. So basically, if you look at the white line, you can see that when the white line is sloping up and climbing, BloodHound is automatically marked as green, and when the line is basically going down, it's marked it with red. Okay, so let's add the MACD differential, a threshold indicator. So this is just below it. You see this thing that looks like an oscillator. That's the MACD diff. And what we're going to do is sort of suppose that, okay, now we got the main trend established, and we want to compare it to what the MACD is doing. And typically, you know, again, there's many uses for the MACD, but we're just going to test to see if it's above or below 0. Now, he's got the MACD selected, and you notice that MACD actually has 3 different outputs to it. Those of you that done some programming will know that these 3 different outputs, you know, they correspond to different plots of the indicator. And so he's just simply selected the diff output, which is the one we want to analyze. And he's going to take a look again. He's just manipulating the output to test against 0. Now you can see BloodHound has essentially mimicked the MACD, and now looking at whether it's above or below 0. So when it's below 0, we get this nice red section, and when it's above 0, we get this nice little green section. So let's pull these together, take a look at it. Yes, thank you, Barry. It's the histogram, and see if we can see what it looks like if we combine the two. So let's suppose that your trading system basically wants to see both the EMA, the 100 EMA, and the MACD agreeing with you at the same time basically as a trade permissive or an overall filter. So notice how he's basically copied these nodes and put them onto the chart or put them onto the workspace. And now he's plugged in the EMA slope to the result node. So what this is telling BloodHound is I just want to see the result from the EMA slope. And again, that's what we saw earlier. So we see these nice bands of green and red. And now he's plugging them both into the AND node. So when he plugs that into the result, immediately we see on the chart places where both the EMA and the MACD actually agree with each other. So look at the chart closely. You can see that section there is that green section. The EMA is sloping upwards, and the MACD or the histogram is above 0. But just after it, and just before it, you see, just after it, thank you, there's a section there where the MACD, the histogram, is below 0, but yet the slope is up. So they don't agree. And that's why you see this blank. You don't see a band there. So how would you use this in a trading system? Well, let's suppose this is a nice little trend filter that you've put in there, and again, you could just stop it there and use BloodHound as a filter. But let's say, just for the sake of arguments, that you have these signals that you like to take, and you like to take them when the 10 moving average crosses over the 30 moving average, and that's what the two other lines that we have on the chart are. We have the orange line and the blue line. The orange line is the 10 period simple moving average, and the blue one is the 30 period. So what we want to do is just mark off the sections where the 10 and 30 cross. Okay, so he's going to actually add that into the result node. And pardon me if I don't get to your questions right away. There's going to be a little bit of a section at the end here where we can answer as many questions as we can. So certainly feel free to type them in, but you can also hold off to the end of the presentation. So he's connected the 1030 crossover now to the result node, and as you can see, BloodHound has now marked the chart of all the instances where there's that crossover event between the blue and the orange lines. There we go. And then now we can simply just add that solver node into the AND node. And again, all this means is now we want all three conditions to be true before taking a trade. So now we've got basically the filters above it, and then just below we have the crossover event. And now BloodHound has marked all the situations where all three criteria are met. So if you look at there, you see the crossover, one of the orange or yellow circles that he's marked is basically when the EMA slope is sloping downwards and the histogram is agreeing with it and there's a crossover. And likewise, there's a long side that where all three agree as well. But you can see some crossover events that aren't there. If you back up a little bit, but you can, if you look close enough at the chart, and those of you that are very experienced with this sort of thing can probably see it almost instantly that there's either one of the criteria may not be meeting the situation. So that one's pretty close, but that looks like the EMA is probably not agreeing there. It looks like it's either flat or flat positive. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a stochastics. This is a neat little solver that we've added. And actually, both Zach and I are students of Roger Felton. If you haven't heard of him, he's a fantastic, amazing scalping trader. And we got, he likes to look at, not just the slope of an indicator, but actually the change in slope. And where this becomes very useful is in analyzing things like the stochastics actually. And some people use it for the MACD, and some use it with an HMA. But it allows you to see weakness and strength building. Kind of gives you an early indication of strength and weakness before it happens, just by looking at how the slope is changing over time. So you may have a positive slope, but it's starting to keel over. It's starting to turn south. Wouldn't be nice to sort of give you an early warning before that actually happens. And likewise, you may be having a negative slope, but it's starting to curve upwards. So what this change in slope solver does is it gives you a nice kind of early warning. So there, yeah, that's a nice strong point. But you can see as the curve starts to slope and starts to change directions, you start to see a buildup of the bars starting to build up in the opposite direction. So it kind of gives you an early warning. And naturally, like all the solvers that we're adding today, you can configure the output sort of to your heart's desire. So we have some, I think, very reasonable default settings. But certainly, if they don't suit your needs, you just simply go in there and you can fiddle around with them and change them. So let's go ahead and change that AND node actually to a ratio node. So one neat thing about BloodHound is you can just change the behavior of the node just by simply clicking up there, and now we've got this ratio node. This is a really neat tool. The ratio node is almost something that you can't you wouldn't really be able to make use of it unless you had this kind of real-time environment that we see with BloodHound. Because what it does is it actually it calculates a weighted average of the inputs that are given to it. So actually, Zach, why don't you plug in the stochastics there too, so we have actually 4 criteria. But the gist of it is essentially, you may have like 4 or 5 things that you like to look at the chart. You're not quite sure what the influence or what the importance of each one are, and you want to visually inspect, what it would be like if I put all these criteria in there, and what if it was the EMA 100 was said to be the most important factor. What Zach is doing is he's changing the multiplier value, which is basically increasing or decreasing the influence of the output, or sorry, the input to the final output. So basically, if he increases that value, the 100 EMA increases its influence on the final decision. So this is kind of like the essence of fuzzy logic. This is the exciting stuff. So and again, this kind of technology we hope will bring about an entirely new way of creating systems, where you basically can play around with it and have fun and see in real time how you change the variables and how it affects your chart. This is in contrast, and I'd say this is practically impossible if you were to try to code this up. If you were to have maybe a weighted average and to see it visually and inspect it immediately. This is something that just wouldn't be practical to do. So this node is kind of designed for those people that really like to toy around and like to experiment. Okay, so the last thing we want to show you here is a support and resistance solver. And this one actually we're pretty excited about as well. So let's just pretend, and you can certainly use any indicator that you'd like to feed in as your source of support and resistance. But just for the sake of illustration, we're just going to use the 100 EMA because we already got it up on the chart. And we're going to pretend that you've analyzed the charts well enough and you think the 100 EMA is a great support and resistance line. So we're going to add a support and resistance solver and then add 100 EMA or associated with the 100 EMA. And basically what this support and resistance solver attempts to do is, if you think, okay, just pretend you're like you're a sprinter, and the gun goes off, you're running towards the finish line, and you've got this headwind that's basically slowing you down. You can almost think of the support and resistance as can work against you or for you, but let's suppose that it works against you, right? So if you're taking a long trade, generally speaking, if you don't want to take it into a resistance level, right? That's sort of giving yourself not enough room to profit from the trade. So BloodHound can actually measure the distance of the current value or the current closing price against a support resistance line, and conversely, say if you're going short, you want to make sure you've got enough room that it doesn't bounce off some support level and bounce back in your face and ruin your short trade. So what this solver does is, if you look closely on the chart there, so he's got it now connected directly to the output node. As we get closer and closer, say where he's got his cursor there. Imagine you want to go long. Okay. Now, if that EMA was your resistance line, as you get closer and closer to that line, basically the less confidence you have from at least a support resistance standpoint you have going long, because you don't have as much room. And naturally, when you break through it, though, you're clear of that line and you're good to go. So conversely, on the short side there, basically the further away you are from that line, or as you're approaching it, the worse it is for the short type of trades. And so those of you might be kind of wondering, well, that's great and all, I just have 100 EMA. What if I have 10 support and resistance lines? There are indicators out there actually that we're aware of that allow you to that actually plot multiple support and resistance lines out there. And it's just a simple matter of just going in there and selecting that indicator, which may have multiple plots. And if you could look, if you just not that we need to do this necessarily, but you can, if you click on the Murray map, that's another one of Roger Felton's favorites actually. It's got multiple plots there, so you can actually use all the lines that support and resistance lines that are fed in from the Murray math. Presumably you might actually as well have third-party tools and whatnot that have feed you support and resistance areas. And we didn't try to sort of pigeonhole you into this is your support and resistance line, because basically there's every trader out there has different conceptions of what is a good support and resistance indicator or support and resistance area for them, and it's because it's so specific to your trading system. We just left the flexibility there for you to feed in what kind of support and resistance data you'd like to feed in. All right, so basically that concludes the demonstration portion of the presentation. And now I'd like to share my desktop again and move on to a conclusion here. Oh, I seem to have shared the wrong monitor. Pardon me, folks. And let's see if we can get that back. If not, I think what I'll do, I'll drag the presentation onto this side here. There we go. Pardon me, folks. This is, again, a little bit of hiccups for the first time we've done this. So I'd like to point out today that, again, thank you for coming and whatnot. I just want to wrap things up and review what we covered. You learned what BloodHound is, how it works, and its basic operations. So we got about 10 minutes or so, and I apologize if we can't get through everybody's questions, but we're going to try to go through the list here and answer questions that that you guys have typed in. So let me scroll back up here and take a look. Okay, so Rodrigo, I think I answered. Okay, can BHU connect your solver directly? James, I'm not quite sure what you're asking there. Perhaps if you could reword that, maybe I can get to your question. Rodrigo asks, what solver is best suited to recognize a specific candlestick pattern? So basically there is a built-in NinjaTrader indicator called candlestick patterns. It's a fantastic indicator, and all you got to do is actually use a threshold solver and associate it with a candlestick pattern. And basically if you test, I believe it gives you a 1 if it finds a pattern, otherwise a 0. So you just simply test to see if that indicator is a 1. Raj K, will you be posting this? Yes, I have to admit I kind of started the foolish as I am, and maybe a bit of rack of nerves, I actually started the recording, unfortunately, kind of halfway through the presentation, so the front half is cut off. My apologies for that. I know there's a lot of people that were looking for the recording. I'll try to be better next time. And likewise, we're going to be adding stuff on the website. We're going to be adding videos and more material for you guys. Again, the whole point of BloodHound is once you get past the little bit of learning curve that's involved with this system, you can see how powerful it is. Certainly, I assure you that the learning curve is far easier than learning how to code. But once you get to that point, you can start creating systems literally with the snap of your fingers. It's really quick. So the investment in time is well worth it. All right, David H. Are all third-party indicators capable of being used by BloodHound, or the specific criteria required by a third party? So BloodHound will work with any third-party indicator that exposes data programmatically. I know there are some indicators out there that are designed to be just chart feedback, and they don't actually give like actual outputs in the form of plots or data series. Unfortunately, if you don't understand what that means, don't worry about it too much. But I guess what I'm saying is most professional third-party indicators are aware that programmers are trying to basically siphon data from it, so they actually have plots defined and data series. So the great majority of them are supported from that perspective. But of course, there are some indicator developers out there that haven't considered that, and so unfortunately, if the indicators don't actually give data, there's nothing much we can do in terms of plugging into them. But I suspect the vast majority of them aren't like that. Toby Z, yep, Roger is definitely the divergence guru. Phil, speaking of divergence, what about putting in a divergence spotter? That is definitely something on the table. For now, there are a lot of various divergence type indicators out there, and you can certainly just plug them right into BloodHound without any problems, thereby giving you divergence capabilities. So I believe, in fact, on the support forum, someone was asking about that, and there was a free one. I think it's off Big Mike's trading. I'm not sure exactly, but you can certainly plug that into a threshold solver and just test the threshold and see if that indicator is giving you good signals. Exactly my question. I have an amazing indicator spotting divergence and would like to use it. Absolutely, you can certainly plug those in, Tom. It'll again work with any indicator that you may have developed in the past. Tom, which divergence? Okay, Toby, I like how you connect your solvers directly. Okay, that's a comment there. All right, move down here. I use proximity. Okay. David H., are all third-party indicators being used by BloodHound or specific? Okay, I believe I just answered that. Tom K., yeah, Murray Math absolutely can be used as support resistance for sure. In fact, that's a favorite of Roger Felton's, and certainly when we designed BloodHound, that's something that we incorporated on purpose. So you can use all the outputs and all the support and resistance lines that come out of the Murray Math indicator. Peter H., how does it tie into NinjaTrader's ATM for management in auto-traded strategy? Okay, I just want to clear up something. BloodHound is an indicator. It's an indicator builder, and those of you that are familiar with the way NinjaTrader works is you have indicators and strategies. So they're two separate things, and naturally you can plug in your BloodHound into a strategy, and in fact on our website we have some pretty easy examples on how to do that. But just a disclaimer: if you do that, you do have to, if you're developing a strategy and you're using BloodHound, it does require obviously a little bit of programming knowledge. The one thing that BloodHound isn't, it's not a trade manager. Okay, it's basically a logic engine, and it's a very powerful logic engine that you can actually include in your strategies. And if you're an experienced developer, or even if you're just a beginner one, could very easily create very sophisticated strategies. In fact, just using the example code that we have up on the website. And naturally, because NinjaTrader's strategies in general can use ATMs, that would sort of imply that any strategies that you incorporate BloodHound with as well has that capability. So yes, in fact, there is an example, and we're working actually. I'm working on an example to post on the website, showing you how to incorporate an ATM with BloodHound. Lifetime upgrades. Toby, actually, when you purchase BloodHound, you will have basically access to all the upgrades to the 1.0 product, and certainly when we make some major changes and a major version upgrade, you can optionally upgrade to the next version for a nominal fee, but it just sort of keeps the engine churning for us and allows us to reinvest the resources into making a better product for you guys. So you know, when you purchase BloodHound, you're licensed for a lifetime, so there's no monthly fees and whatnot for the version that you purchased it for. Raj K asks, could you please conduct a webinar for building automated strategies and using BH solvers? Yeah, we're considering actually holding a workshop webinar, which will allow you to sort of ask more in-depth questions like that. Now we're not you know, we're sort of not educators by training, you know, and certainly teaching people how to code and whatnot sort of falls a little bit outside our realm of our capabilities to support. So you know, we'll sort of show you how BloodHound can be incorporated into a strategy quite easily, and how you can custom code a strategy around BloodHound. But in terms of you know, we sort of make the assumption that you have the coding knowledge, kind of the foundation already there to do that, if that's what you want to do and you want to take this to a full-blown automated system. Speaking which, we are working on a separate, a second product as well that's actually going to be taking advantage of the power of BloodHound. It's called Falcon, and it's going to be the second sort of part of an automated trading system, which is basically the trade management section. So I won't say anything kind of more before about that at the moment, because it's sort of down the road. But you know, there's certainly a demand for that, and those of you that prefer to have fully automated trading systems, we're definitely looking out in your direction, and BloodHound is certainly the first step in that direction. Okay, Tom K says, so how do you know that the indicator is supporting public data series? Well, the easiest way actually is to just pop it into BloodHound, and of course there's a 30-day free trial. You can test it out and just see if it shows up in the data series is there. You just select it in BloodHound, and if it shows up as if you see the plots there and you see the data series there, it's there, and if not, then it doesn't support it. Rodrigue asks, BH can look at different time frames. How about different instruments on those charts? Yes, it can. It can look at different instruments as well. When you define a time frame, you can also specify which instrument you'd like to associate it with. Corey T, does BloodHound itself perform the trade, or is this something that has to be used through NinjaScript? So again, the distinction between BloodHound and it's basically an indicator, and what you do is up to you about it. So if you incorporate it into a strategy, then yes, you know, obviously you would have it so it takes the trades for you. But you know, it's just as an indicator, it basically marks your chart with buy and sell signals. And on our website, as I said before, we have examples on how you can integrate it into a strategy quite easily, and then therefore have it take trades for you. But again, that's something that does require a little bit of coding knowledge and expertise to do. Phil, so if NinjaTrader, if in Ninja the data window shows values for your indicator, then the criteria is met for the indicator being able to be used in BH. Generally speaking, yes. If the data window shows the values, that generally means there's a plot that's being exposed by that indicator. So yes, BH will be able to pick that up and use it. David H asks, so indicator manager that ties into strategy creation but coding required. That's correct. So basically, again, it's BloodHound is a logic engine. And you could very easily tie it into a strategy with very little code, and not only that, just be able to, you can actually build your strategy just once. And in your code, basically, the things that you have to handle are things like the trade management. You have to handle how the stops are placed and what the profit targets are. Pardon me, folks. But basically, yeah, it makes it very easy. Once you've got that done, you can actually instantiate your strategy, and on runtime, that's when you can change the logic up kind of to your heart's content. So basically, you could think of it as you write it once and you do it, and you can change the entries and whatnot without touching code from that point forward. All right, so where was I? For your sample strategy news script, do you have plans for a trade manager SDK? I believe, Barry, I've answered that. Yes, we certainly do have plans for that, and we're going to go certainly a lot further than just an SDK. But at this time, I'm not going to kind of reveal too much because those are future plans. But definitely the value is there. Okay, Edward C. asks, what is the cost? The cost is $4.95 for a license. RDW, is there a way to do simple math functions like dividing and multiplying by the indicator value by another? That's another feature that we are looking for, and that's something that's definitely on the table. For now, there's a couple simple ways around it. If you're sharp enough, actually there's I believe an ultimate indicator out there that's free for distribution that you can actually use, and you can plug that value in. You can use your math formulas and plug that value into BloodHound, but it's certainly a solver for that specific function is in the works. Corey T asks, is there any lag time for the calculations? The lag time is extremely minimal. It's negligible, really. You know, I think it's really only a factor if you're looking at nanoseconds, that sort of thing. You know, it's pretty much as fast as your computer can calculate, and these calculations are very lightweight. They were designed with optimization in mind, and again, it's you know, knowing that's a very important thing is that, you know, we don't want to bog your system down. However, keep in mind it does add other indicators. So if you have a third-party indicator that's hooked into it, and that third-party indicator is very computationally expensive, unfortunately, of course, BloodHound has to wait till that indicator has calculated its values before it can retrieve them and use them. Can the solvers read GOM CD recorder data files? It can't read the GOM CD recorder data files directly. However, you can certainly plug in, you can use GOM CDs and you can configure GOM CD, the indicator, and plug it into BloodHound. And you know, thereby when you would actually configure the GOM CD to load the file up, the data files first, and then plug that in. Although, just a disclaimer, that I haven't actually specifically tested GOM CD, but at least I can't see a reason why it wouldn't work. Can be used like market analyzer. Well, yeah, I mean, BloodHound is essentially a market analyzer on steroids. It does more than. Can it be used in market analyzer? I think that's maybe what you're asking. BloodHound plots both the long and short values, so yes, it can certainly be included in market analyzer. Oh, do you mean strategy analyzer or market analyzer? Okay, well, I'll get back to that in a sec. Okay, so could it give one idea of equivalent size tick chart? One idea of equivalent size tick chart if one is using time-based chart. Ken, I'm not quite sure if I fully understand your question, but it certainly can use tick charts, no problem. Renko charts, and pretty much any chart that's supported by NinjaTrader. A word about custom coded charts. So if you've downloaded a custom chart off Big Mike's, or you've coded your own custom chart type, you can add BloodHound to a custom chart. But unfortunately, NinjaTrader has a bit of a limitation in terms of indicators are not allowed to instantiate custom charts. So all the standard charts included in NinjaTrader are fair game. Tick, line break, Renko, point and figure, any time frame you'd like, as long as pretty much anything you like is possible. Okay, the market analyzer. Yeah, so yeah, it should has no problems showing up in the market analyzer if that's the way you'd like to see the data. Yes, Tom. Yeah, again, this is an effort that we're looking to solidify. And right now I'm scrambling to looking for hired help, and that's the reason why Zach is here as well. So that we have a more active forum and a closer eye on those questions, and certainly we're going to strive to do our best to answer your questions and get what you want out of the product. So very similar to what NinjaTrader does. We'll have an active support forum where you can visit and ask questions. All right, thanks Toby for the kind words. Ken P. Well, say you are using a 3-minute chart and any idea how it compares, and give idea of the same size equivalent on a tick chart format. I'm still not quite clear on what you're asking, Ken. Certainly, if you have both charts, a tick chart and a 3-minute chart up there, and you've added both those charts to BloodHound, you can certainly compare the two that way. Custom bar types can be used as well as Ninja supports them. So custom bar types, David, I believe I answered that already. It supports them to the effect that you can use them. You can actually add BloodHound to them, no problem, just like any other indicator. But in terms of adding it as a separate time frame within the BloodHound template, as you saw remember, if you recall, what Zach was doing the old system, he had the 1-minute chart, in the template itself. In terms of adding it that way, again, that's a limitation that NinjaTrader has. You can't actually add custom chart types. I've been kind of in talks with Ninja, and then they're looking at that. And as long as soon as they support it in the future, rest assured we'll be adding that as well. Okay, Phil, tick chart length that are equivalent to a particular time-based chart, depending on level of activity of each trading contract. Phil, perhaps we can take this one offline. I'm still not quite clear on what you're asking exactly, but certainly, again, you can just ask it in the support inquiry. I'll get that one, and or actually, I think probably the better place to put it is put in the support forum, and that way, if anybody else has the same question, they can sort of benefit from seeing the. Oh, thanks, Phil. Thanks. I understand. So yeah, if you have any questions that are basically related to the product itself, I encourage you to use the support forum. Otherwise, if the support inquiry is kind of, it's more, at least in the moment, is more suited towards billing type questions and whatnot, if you've got questions about licensing and whatnot. So questions on using the product itself, the preferred method is to use the support forum, and that's, again, so we can get, so other people may benefit from the answers as well. Okay, well, so that looks like it wraps up all the questions. I want to thank all of you for coming out today, and again, don't be afraid to download and check out BloodHound if you've not done so already. It's a great tool to fool around with, and I definitely encourage you to experiment as much as possible. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great weekend, and happy trading.